From James Gunn confirming that he never hired Henry Cavill as Superman, to the actor not returning despite hardcore fans wanting him back, these are all the reasons why Cavill will not return as Superman. For starters, James Gunn has already confirmed that he's not going to hire Henry as Superman. In fact, this was one of the first things he revealed when he took over as the new head of DC Films. And you just know that fans were not happy. I mean, there are a lot of things that fans didn't like about the old DC universe, but Henry Cavill was certainly not one of them. Just about everyone liked his portrayal of the character, and so it made total sense for the director to add him to his overhauled DC universe. But nope. Gunn revealed that his new slate of DC projects is ready to go, and among them is a new Superman movie, which, surprise surprise, won't include Henry Cavill as the main hero. Fans went wild, and accusations were being hurled at the director. Some people said that he's got some personal beef with the star, while others just called him out of touch, adding that he's got no idea what the fans really want. Of course, it seems that none of this is true. Turns out, there's actually a pretty good reason why James decided not to bring back Henry's Superman, and that's why he's got a brand new Superman story in his mind. Instead of showing an aged and grisly Superman like the Snyder films, this one is supposed to be a lot younger. Like, you're really going to be seeing the early days of the superhero, so expect to see a baby-faced crime fighter. When talking about his new movie, Gunn said that they needed a star who could lay the foundation of the new DC universe. You know, someone who could portray the role of Superman for literally decades to come. This is just the first chapter of the new DCU, but it's clear that James is already thinking way ahead into the future. Which is why, even though hiring Cavill would have been a slam dunk, the director made the bold choice of instead opting for someone new to take over the role. And while it's understandable why he did that, it still doesn't make it any easier for the fans. Especially when you consider that Henry was just recently rehired for the role. 2 months for James Gunn's big DCU announcement, Henry Cavill pretty much reignited everyone's hope in the DC universe by appearing in a cameo at the end of The Rock's Black Adam movie. This was the star's first appearance in his iconic role in years, and it made fans think that there's actually a future for him in the DC universe. You see, for a long time, fans thought that Henry had some serious beef with people at Warner Brothers. And because of this, they didn't want him to return to the role of Superman. Even the few times when the character appeared in the DC universe, like in the first Shazam film or at the end of the Peacemaker show, weirdly didn't show Superman's face. It was clear that they didn't want Henry to return, but also, weirdly, didn't want to announce a new actor for the role. So, Superman's fate was kind of left hanging in limbo for a while. But everything changed when The Rock started assuming control of the DCEU. In the months before Black Adam was released, Guy straight up made it seem like he was the boss over at DC Films. He was out saying stuff like the hierarchy of DC is going to change, which made fans think that the executives over at WB were finally being pushed to the side. And instead, Dwayne was going to start running the show. I mean, was an interesting prospect, that's for sure. And well, even though Black Adam as a film ended up disappointing, Henry's cameo as Superman was enough to get people hyped once more. Here's what Dwayne had in mind. He was hoping to create an epic showdown between Superman and Black Adam. This would happen many more times down the line, and multiple DC projects would build this climactic fight up. Until finally, DC got their own endgame-like epic event. Now, that all sounds great on paper, but here's the problem. Dwayne wasn't in charge. I mean, he was going around making decisions like he was the boss, but the actual bosses already had a plan to kick him out and instead have James Gunn take over the reins. Turns out, Dwayne went over people's heads and got Henry involved in the project. This was despite the fact that there was a major DC change incoming when James Gunn took over. He knew that it could lead to fans being disappointed, but it seems the star made a last-ditch effort to keep some form of relevance anyway, so when it finally got revealed that James was not going to go along with Dwayne's weird plans, fans were pissed. And I mean, in some ways I can get why they felt that way, but you've got to understand, Henry Cavill's not returning isn't actually James's fault. If it were up to him, Henry wouldn't have been strung along like he was. I mean, that's literally what the filmmaker said. When people called him out for firing Cavill out of the blue, Gunn mentioned that he didn't fire him. That's because he never hired the star in the first place. It was never on his mind to restart the original DC universe. probably because of just how much of a convoluted mess it's become, thanks in no small part to Zack Snyder. Gunn was always going to start things off from scratch, and unfortunately, this meant that Cavill's Superman was never in the cards. So if anything, people should be directing their rage at Dwayne Johnson. Because it seems he got people hyped over something that he knew was never going to happen. And all of it just seems like a way to get people to care about his film, which is really mediocre otherwise. I mean, when the most exciting part of your movie is the post-credit sequences, you know that you messed up somewhere. And for what it's worth, James Gunn did mention that he felt bad for Henry. In fact, the filmmaker even said that the former DC executives treated him terribly. Those executives were literally sitting on a golden opportunity. All they had to do was hire good writers and directors, and they could have been printing money, at least when it comes to Superman films. But instead, in James's own words, Cavill got around by a lot of people, including the former regime at the company. Personally, James mentioned that he thinks Henry is a great guy. Additionally, the previous executives at WB ought to have treated him better. But for the story that James is doing, Cavill is just not the right guy, and we, as fans, have to respect that. I think James knows that it'd be an easy win to simply rehire Henry and get all the fans on his side. But he's not trying to go for short-term wins here. Gunn has a proper story to tell, and that means he's got to make the tough decisions at first. Even if it means not hiring fan-favorite stars and opting for storylines that don't exactly make sense to the fans just yet. And while fans are definitely in the dark in terms of the future of Superman, James did reveal a few key details about his movie. For example, he revealed that it's coming out in 2025 and it's going to be called Superman Legacy. The film will showcase the character's life as a farm boy in Kansas and how it differs from his Kryptonian heritage. It looks like the movie will focus both on the alien part of the character, but will also highlight just what makes him human. It's a great direction to take the character in my opinion. And it's a nice breath of fresh air after Snyder's iteration of Kal-El, which involved him literally shoving villains into crowded buildings, leaving thousands of innocent people dead in his wake. That's not the Superman I remember from the comics, Snyder. James also said that while the first Superman movie isn't exactly going to be a one-to-one comic adaptation, it'll still be inspired by Grant Morrison's All-Star Superman series. Fans of the comics consider that to be one of the all-time best Superman stories, so it's pretty exciting to see James take inspiration from it. The movie is currently in the process of hiring the actor who has the difficult task of portraying the superhero. While there are a few names that are rumored to be in the running, James himself hasn't confirmed any details just yet. Though things are looking good for the character, it may not be enough for some fans. For die-hard fans of Snyder's DC films, or just people who can't get over Cavill's Superman, nothing that James does may be enough. They may want to see Henry return, even though it's obvious that isn't going to happen. There's no denying he was an amazing Superman, but unfortunately, it just wasn't meant to be. I think it's better to move on and give something new a chance. But hey, from him not returning despite hardcore fans of the star wanting him back, to James Gunn confirming that he never even hired Henry Cavill as Superman, those were all the reasons why Henry Cavill's Superman will never return.